Good morning and welcome to the Facebook group Women Healing from Emotional Abuse with Power, Passion, and Pleasure. Or perhaps you're watching later on YouTube under Pleasure for Health. And hopefully take a moment to subscribe to the channel to get all of my new content in a timely fashion. My name is Ilsa and I'm so glad to spend a few moments 10, 15, 20 minutes here with you talking about attachment. And specifically, this trauma bond kind of attachment, because it really comes into its own when we're discussing why do we stay in relationships that aren't good for us? Why do we stay there? Why are we constantly going back? Why are we recreating relationships that are consistently putting us on edge or in abusive situations? And there's many reasons for this, and I wanted to go into a little bit about attachment bonding, trauma bonding. You may have heard of this. And, it's kind of, it's sort of understandable, but it's sort of hard to wrap your head around. And I wanted to do this because, first of all, I don't want you to be left feeling like you're a failure, like you just will never have a healthy relationship, because that's not true. We can learn skills around boundaries, around relationships, around ourself, around being aware of ourself and what our motivations are. And this can save us a lot of grief. It can save us a lot of grief in life, in money, time, energy, years. How many of you, hands up, have spent years in abusive or, emotionally unhelpful, manipulative relationships? I spent a good couple decades there myself, and I know that, it's not that I'm not grateful for all the lessons. It helps me help you these days, but there's a lot of years and energy and time wasted on these types of relationships and these types of people that will take advantage of these relationships and our potentially attachment to them. And then, we just basically don't get on with our own lives, with our own joys, pursuing what we want to do with our life. Somebody said to me once, they're like, I wonder what you would have done if you hadn't spent 20 years with that person that just sucked the life out of you. What would you would have done? And they actually said you probably would have been like president of Pakistan or something. And not that I want to be president of Pakistan, but it was interesting to think about. Yeah, I do have these qualities that maybe would have served in a bigger sense. Maybe I wouldn't just be getting my my life path really going, since in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, when I've finally gotten out of that relationship and can focus on my own stuff. And I do have a new partner, by the way, so it doesn't mean that you're going to be alone or lonely for the rest of your life either. It just means that you learn more about how to be true to yourself, how to have integrity, and these things are possible. And it's possible to find someone to help you work through them, or find workshops or courses, therapists that will help to work through this. We do heal in the context of relationships. I have a video already out on that. We heal in relationship to people. So we may isolate ourselves for a while first, but in the end, we do have to go back out into the world of relationships. And, it helps to have some guidance on that. So without further ado, we're going to look at attachment and how it comes. Here's a quote that I just want us to think about and really sit with for a moment. And that is that attachment deepens with terror. With fear, you could also say, but even more so with terror. Attachment deepens with terror. Oof. Doesn't that just hit you? It's like, oh my gosh, we're sitting in these relationships, and the more terrified we are, and the more afraid we are, and the more drama there is in the relationship, the more attached we're getting to this relationship. Isn't that nuts? So, it's kind of weird. It's like, well, what the hell is going on with that? And it's not only in domestic abuse or, emotional abuse. It's also with any type of abuse, sexual, incest, all these types of things. If you have this fear, attachment, excitement kind of thing all coming together, it's like irresistible. it's practically irresistible to us. And they did a study. I can't quote you the exact study. I will maybe look it up and try to put it in the comments later. They did a study on people looking at pictures of, to see who you found attractive. So they had people, just normal people, everyday people, sitting and having coffee or whatever. And that was fine. It's like, yeah, he's okay, she's okay, they're okay, whatever. And then they put people in dangerous situations, like hanging off a bridge or, some kind of dangerous situation. And people rated them as more attractive. Isn't that weird? Like, that's kind of like mind-boggling. I'm like, and we kind of play into that in a lot of movies, right? Like the person you finally fall in love when they're, almost dying or falling off some bridge or doing something dramatic, right? All of a sudden it sparks everything in you to attach to that person. And, biologically, maybe there's something about rescuing other humans in dangerous situations that makes that a thing. However, if we are, in terror or fear, and then, someone comes along and creates that in us, and then also creates this, like, they do this kind of back and forth, love bombing terror, love bombing fear, love bombing walking on eggshells, like, it actually creates a really strong bond. And so we get stuck in that for all sorts of reasons. And I've gone into in other videos the physiological reasons, some of the neurotransmitters and hormones that are released in this case. We have, endogenous opioids and different things that are similar to outside drugs that we might take. We actually create a lot internally, and they can create addictions to this type of drama as well. So we're not just mentally weak people. We are actually responding to something that's really happening in our bodies. So what this sets up, in one way of looking at it, is this, it's sometimes called the victim triangle. It's sometimes called the Karpman triangle, I guess after the guy who kind of mapped it out. But you've probably heard of, like, the victim, the victimizer, or the perpetrator, and the rescuer. Excuse me. So this triangle, we are usually in all three of those roles. I hate to tell you this, but you are not just the victim. You are not just the perpetrator. Like, we don't usually stay in those roles. Sometimes, maybe there's a fixed role, but actually that's not as magnetically attractive as when we go zooming around all three roles. And we'll look at some examples of that, because what happens is you start off as the victim, somebody's abusing you, and that's real. This isn't taking away. And then, the policeman comes along, you call 911 or whatever, the police comes along, tries to arrest your partner or the perpetrator, and then you attack the policeman. And now, the rescuer, who was the policeman, came, and then you become the perpetrator, and the policeman becomes the victim, and then the person who steps in to rescue is often the one that perpetrated the whole thing in the first place. They get all calm. They're just like, yeah, I've got this. It's no problem, sir. Go away, whatever. And so, that's a kind of blatant example, but we do this all the time in our relationships, where we start off in one role. We usually have an entry point to this triangle, and many of us spend a lot of time here. And one thing to notice about that whole level of existence is, one, it's where soap operas are made. So if you really love soap operas and drama, this is where they live, right? They're just creating drama. This one manipulated that one, and then that one's the victim of this one, and this one rescues, and then they become the victim of this, and and round it goes, right? And it never gets any better. So within this triangle, we often play more than one role, and that increases the attachment to the drama that we have in this relationship or relationships, of these things. And so we might ask ourselves, well, why am I, I'm a nice person. Why am I getting attracted? Why am I on this? Why am I in this with this other person who doesn't seem to be such a nice person, or something like that? And the answer is, we have some similarities, and energetically we have some things that are in common, and so therefore we attract each other. And all the people on this triangle who are playing whatever role you're playing have these similarities. They all originate from shame and self-doubt. So if you have shame and self-doubt, you might, if you have an abuser that you're calling a narcissistic abuser, an emotional abuser, they have shame and self-doubt, which is part of the reason why they're acting that way. And you also have shame and self-doubt. And the rescuer also has shame and self-doubt because they've probably also been victimized, and now they're kind of rescuing, right, instead of dealing with their own stuff. So all of us have this same underlying theme. We also have a sense of unworthiness, all of us. Now we manifest that differently potentially, but we all have a sense of unworthiness. And then people in these sort of things are never confident that anyone will fulfill their needs. So we have this like lack mentality. Nobody will ever really fill my needs. So I either have to grasp at somebody who is abusing me and hope that they'll meet my needs, be nice to them, all of that, or I'm going to manipulate and deceive somebody to get my needs met, or I have to rescue and hope that somebody sees that I'm a good person for rescuing and will meet my needs. So we're not getting our needs met. So, let's just take a step back for a moment and notice that gives us a way out, right? That gives us a way out, because if you learn how to meet your needs in other ways and in healthier relationships, you know what? You're not going to attract those types of people. You're not going to be one of those people that will be on this triangle. And you will begin to have relationships on other levels. And it takes a while to get used to it. I've got to give one really salient point that I give when I'm coaching people. It's not going to feel amazingly attractive or magnetic or sexy to be in a healthy relationship at first, because it's not as fun. You don't have all the, kind of feelings that you have with your abusive partner. You're going to feel like, I wish they'd be a little more something, or I'm kind of feeling anxious that something's going to go wrong. It's just kind of too calm. And sometimes our own anxiety takes us out again and we go back into the triangle. This is why I would highly recommend getting some support and help with getting you in tune with your own self and strong enough and skillful enough that you're moving forward and actually coming to a different understanding, that you can get your needs met in other ways. And this is one of the big things we work with. However, so we all have reasons why we get on this triangle, and I thought it was kind of interesting to look at. So the victim allies with the perpetrator or the victimizer. The victim actually becomes an ally with them in order to get their needs met. They're trying to get their needs met. This person seems like, well, if I'm good enough, if I look good enough, if I do what they want, if I cook dinner the way they want, if I clean the house, they'll meet my needs. So the victim actually allies with the perpetrator in order to try and get their needs met. The perpetrator allies with the victim because, they get attached because they actually think, well, I'm going to have to manipulate this person in order to get my needs met. I don't actually trust that they will meet my needs or that anybody will meet my needs, but let me, deceive and exploit this person in order to do that. And this person is easy to deceive and exploit. Therefore, I might get my needs met. Of course, we know that that's probably not going to work, but if you don't actually get really into your own psyche about this, you will still continue to do that. And the rescuer is kind of intensely looking at the whole situation, the victim and the perpetrator, and they're just like, please recognize me that I'm the hero here and I'm coming in to rescue you, and therefore I might get my needs met as the rescuer. And of course that hardly ever happens as well, because all of them are obsessing about what? Are they obsessing about growing and self-reflection and their own life path? They're all obsessing about somebody else or the situation. So the victim obsesses about the perpetrator obsesses about the victim, and the rescuer obsesses about the situation. What can I do? If I come in and do this thing, it'll all be fixed and I'll be a hero, right? So the commonality is that they are not focusing in on themselves, on what they want, on what they need, and on meeting that in any kind of healthy way. And we're not focusing on our own self-awareness. We're just focusing out there. And so they're all similarly focused, right? And it all represents a boundary failure because, who am I to actually go out and, try to fix this person or try to get my needs met by manipulating this person? These are all boundary violations. So it all ties together in this really complex kind of thing. And victims fail to protect themselves. They're naively thinking that if I trust this person, they will meet my needs. And, after a while, you continue to try to do that. I'm a good person. I'm trusting. Well, great. But there's a time to be trusting and a time to be discerning, right? And we have to learn about that. The perpetrators or the victimizers fail to limit themselves. They don't have a containment. They're like, oh, well, this person is feeding me, so now I'm just going to take, and I'm not going to limit my own self. In the same way, that's a boundary violation. They're not holding their own self responsibility of their own person. And the rescuers fail to define themselves. They're actually just going in and getting involved in everyone else's business and not even thinking about who they are at all. And so in a way, that's all could be labeled grandiosity. They're all kind of caught up in their own story about it, and nobody's actually doing their own self-work here. So without blaming anyone, I just thought it was really interesting to look at really how we get caught in this, and that this creates such a strong attachment. Because, if you ever were a sucker for dramas or, these types of TV shows, I have to say I still like them. I still like them because something in me I like just watching the drama play out. Now, fortunately, I have made a lot of progress in my personal life, so I don't have to live one of these soap opera like lives anymore. But I still, there's something attractive to that, and there's an attractiveness. So, let's own that we're attracted to that, and let's look at what we can do to kind of move that. And, one thing that might be really interesting is to look at your relationships that you have conflict in. Maybe that's all of them, but a few relationships that you have conflict in, and look at, what do you do to cope in those relationships with conflict? And you could start with your mother or your father or your spouse. These are kind of, or maybe your kids, right? These are the main sort of relationships. Might be friend, might be boss, your colleague, whatever. What are your coping strategies with the conflict there? You might notice that, with my boss, I usually shut up and put up kind of thing. I shut up and do whatever they want. That's my coping strategy because I don't like conflict at work. And then after a while, I purposely make some drama in the office because I'm so, frustrated at work because I've just had to do whatever and I didn't get to have a say. And then I sort of create a drama. So, what roles are you playing there? Well, you're playing the victim because you just have to shut up and do what you're told. That's kind of the victim role, right? And then you're causing some sort of drama because you have all of this angst and you're just, work sucks or whatever. And that would be kind of a perpetrator role. So you might be playing both of those roles at work. Maybe, I'll keep with the work scenario. Let's say, with your boss sort of has a crisis every month when you have to get everything done at the end of the month or whatever, and you come in as the rescuer. Oh, I'm gonna fix, and you work overtime and you fix everything and the reports get done on time, and the boss is like, oh great, you came through again or whatever, and you sort of feel good. But then you also feel like, well, wait a second, I worked all these overtime hours and that's all I get is a pat on the back, and then you go on holiday for a week and now I know you're gonna want me to do it all next week. So you started with the rescuer there, and now you're going to victim. Now you're feeling victimized because everyone's taking advantage of you. So they're playing those two roles. And you might even actually play all three roles sometimes in your relationships. So noticing what your coping strategies are and what you go to is a really good start for this self-awareness journey. And then, bring that to some healing. And, if you're interested in doing this kind of work, I offer a really great program. It's 8 modules. We usually take 8 weeks, sometimes 16 weeks. I work together with you. There's videos, we do recordings. It's, a bit of homework, and you actually get to work on some of the stuff. And I promise, like, everybody who's gone through this program has, been like amazed at just the level of stress and the level of like being obsessed about these people in their lives has just kind of gone down. And what's the most amazing thing that comes out for me watching, kind of helping these people and, working with them, is that they come with these gifts and these like dreams that they've had, and they've just kind of pushed down. Like, one lady became a life coach. One lady started writing her book. Another lady started working with women in a shelter or whatever. Like, everybody finds their inner motivation and desire for doing something in the world to help people, usually help people, because, we tend to be caring people that end up in these types of relationships, and probably why you're watching this video, and to really find what is your calling. And then these people come out with these amazing projects, and they're like, I never had time for this before because I was so attached to this drama triangle and this, this relationship that it took all my time and energy. And now I get to do this. I mean, for me, I've created a healing center. I have workshops and talks, and I help people in coaching arena and body work, all sorts of things that I never had time to do before because I was just managing the crises and, that came up in my marriage. So it's very interesting how it goes. And if you are interested in that, hit reply on the video, shoot me a message. I will DM you all the details, and we can have a conversation about that. There's no pressure to join, but it's an option for how to really delve in and work with this stuff. And I hope it's been interesting and helpful for you today. And, really try that exercise. Pick at least one relationship and see what are your coping strategies with conflict in that relationship, and what role were you playing? And maybe put it in the comments if you figure it out, because that is a really great self-reflection. And it starts us looking in the only place where we can actually make a difference. This way. That's right. The only place we can actually have power and control is over what we do, what we feel, and what we think. And so that's where we can start. So hopefully that's been interesting, and check out other videos in the group or on my YouTube channel, and DM me again if you are interested in working with me. I will get in touch, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.